Somebody's gotta say it. The real conservative truth that shares. LHMusicTime what? LHMusicTime on your radio. America's own gospel Christian service, LHMusicTime, and the Time Factor crew. This is the LHMusicTime Factor radio show.
A good friend and a friend of the program and a great writer, Brad Meltzer, is with us, and he has written
Third and last hour,
History Decoded, the 10 greatest conspiracies of all time. And this is absolutely a Glenbeck book because it is.
And I hope you have fun as much as we all do. And then we get later on this weekend. It's gonna be Time Factor radio television show, open line Saturday night. Trust me about that. So it's gonna be good later on tonight as well on Fox. Now, producer Miranda is going to do some bizarre news of some graphs. Now, 20 people, including 8-year-old boy, was shot in massive shooting in Chicago. President Obama, his hometown. President Obama didn't think it was tragedy. So we'll talk about. Never mentioned it. But the idea was mentioning a highly publicized mass shooting. Guest with us today is the founder of It Forward. His name is Kendall, Almeric.
And
he was personally
involved in
this story. I wanted to share the story with you. Welcome to the show, Kendall. How are you?
What you do is, this is a very charitable site. And
Goodness. You're very kind to say that. I appreciate the opportunity.
No, I think after the Boston Massacre, that was one.
You think this is amazing. It's called crowdfunding. You crowd and forward. You simply do is this is a very charitable site. We want to keep good stories of live in the news. How do you helping others, helping Americans, to help fellow Americans. I think that the Boston Massacre is one thing that people, after many different tragedies, many of us will say, gosh, I can go through something, don't know what to do. You allow us that opportunity to help in some ways. This story in particular is quite sad. It's not one of the stories that's gained.
When you take a lot of people giving a little bit of money, it grows into a lot of money, and then you can do a lot of good things. And we were founded, we're a 501c3 nonprofit charity. Everything's tax deductible, everything's above board. What we do is we raise money for people in need, like people that are the victims of tragedies, but we also raise money for people who do good deeds. We do something that we call random acts of crowdfunding, where, for example, we raised money for Chris Cox, a gentleman you probably heard about who mowed the lawn at the Lincoln Memorial during the recent government shutdown.
Right.
We put up a fund for Chris Cox. This guy's doing great things for America. He's doing great things for veterans. We said, he's doing a random act of kindness. Let's do a random act of crowdfunding in return. And we raised money to buy him some new tools for his business, and the money that is left over after that will go to a charitable cause, something to help veterans. We do things like that every day. That's what Crowd It Forward is all about.
I love it.
And you hit the nail on the head, Rose. It's about perpetuating those good news stories, the ones that you see them in the mainstream media for a day, and then they're gone. They disappear. What happened to this story? You saw it. It was on Facebook. Now it's gone. We keep it going by doing that. So that's part of what we do and the main part of what we do. But we also, when we see a tragedy that's out there and we know that there are victims, like the story that you brought up, the mass shooting that happened at an inner city playground in Chicago. This was 3 days after the horrible tragedy at the Washington Navy Yard. Just 3 days later, someone goes into a playground. 13 people are playing basketball in a pickup game in a playground, opens gunfire, shoots 13 people, including a little 3-year-old boy who gets shot in the face. Horrible tragedy. It shows up in the news. 2-3 days later, all of a sudden, no one's talking about this anymore. And I'm wondering, as you know, the person who set up this business to help people. I said, let's set up a fund to help these inner city people, these people that are kind of disappearing from the news, but 13 gunshot victims. So
wow.
we set up a Crowd It Forward project. It's called Funds for the Victims of the Chicago Shooting. And we, again, as you mentioned, millions of dollars are raised for victims and other tragedies, from the Boston bombings to the Sandy Hook shootings, and these are all very deserving victims that need this type of a fund. So
But
we set
Kendall,
this.
they're raising that much money because there's awareness.
Hit the nail on the head. So what did I do? Now, I've been involved with the media for a long, long time. And I said the first thing I need to do is not only set this up and have an easy way for people to donate. So we set it up on our website at Crowded Forward. And then I went out to the media thinking, well, people are reporting about the Washington Navy Yard tragedy funds that are being set up in Washington. People have reported about the Boston funds. People report about all these other funds. This should be something easy to be able to raise money to help this, especially this little boy who's going to probably need 10 surgeries over the course of his lifetime to have his face reconstructed. So I went out to the mainstream media. I went out to the people that are the ones who literally say, hey, these inner city type people that don't typically get the support of the American public, or that conservatives, quite frankly, are criticized about not supporting. The mainstream media certainly is going to report about this victims fund. Well, guess what? They haven't. I literally went to every member of the mainstream media that I could go to that had already written about all of the other funds that are out there for these other victims groups. I mean, I went to people. I went to the gun control lobbyists, the people that are out there saying that there needs to be something done. The only outlet in the mainstream media that actually reported about this was Huffington Post, and I give them credit. It was great that they did this. The day they reported about it, we raised a couple of $1,000 very quickly, and then crickets. Literally nothing. So I reached back out again to everyone in the mainstream media saying, hey, I need some help here. Can you at least publicize this? I went to the Chicago Tribune. I went to the Chicago television stations. Nobody would put anything up about this fund. Now, interestingly, within minutes of me contacting the Sean Hannity show a few days later, I get a phone call back and said, yeah, you know what, you should be able to come on here and talk about this, because this is something, these are people in need, and while typically conservatives get criticized for not supporting the inner city, or not, in the mainstream media, or get criticized for saying, hey, these are not the people that are helped by conservatives, I thought this will be a good opportunity for me to, tell conservatives about this and say, hey, you have a chance to show the mainstream media that you do support these people, and you do support the inner city, and you do support these crime victims, no matter where they live, no matter what their economic status is. So I appreciate the opportunity to come on here, but really the story here is, why won't the mainstream media talk about this?
Why won't the president talk about it? It was his hometown, Chicago.
Yeah, and Rose, that's another interesting point. And as you mentioned, just a couple of days after the shooting occurred, the president was speaking at a memorial service for the Washington Navy Yard shootings, a very, very somber affair, and he made a very moving speech, as well he should. And he said, as the president, I'm now grieved with 5 American communities ripped apart by mass violence. And he listed them. He said Fort Hood, which was horrible; Tucson, a tragic shooting; Aurora, and the I've ever seen in my life. And they said, and now the Washington Navy Yard. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. I mean,
missing one.
Yeah, I don't, and again, I'm not criticizing the president for not bringing it up. What I'm saying is, it's just interesting that, once again, here is an inner city group of people that are being ignored, and everyone's ignoring them, and I don't know why.
Well, I mean, and you asked me a quick question. If you consider too, is it possible? Does it fit in the narrative for the administration? Is it possible? Does it fit in the narrative for the mainstream media? Have you would you make a case with these mass shootings where the places you don't have to expect it, but we got all these school children and Sandy Hook, and that was a very powerful sight. But the inner city fighting that's been going on has been, probably will continue. It's that the face that we want for Vikings. There's a fine line there, and it just breaks my heart. It's a real story about this. It was the youngest victim of that mass shooting, the South Side Park. It's finally released from the hospital. He's saying a gospel hymn for the media. It's just so touching. You want a moving story There it is, right there.
Amazing story, Rose. And this little boy is just the cutest little boy. And now you see pictures of him before and after. Half of his face was blown off by a gunshot victim. It's terrible. Little Tayman Howard. That, oh, these are gangbangers in the middle of the Chicago hood, and why are you raising money for them? And one of the things we did when we set this fund up is we said we're only going to pay with the money that's raised for medical bills that aren't paid for by other sources, but we're going to set up scholarship funds for the families.
That's fabulous.
You know, if we raised millions of dollars, we could probably send 100 of these inner city people who have no other opportunity. We could send them to college with this fund. And that's what this was all about, is let's do something good to fix an area that really needs it to be fixed. And yet again, you know, it just, the mainstream media has ignored it, despite the fact that I've reached out to them for weeks.
They have indeed, and that's why the ladies at the Hannity program wanted to put you on today, and I'm so glad that they recommended you because
first of all, what you do is fabulous. It is having a cheerful sight of yours, allowing people to do something because we have so helpless at times. And now hearing this story, I hope it encourages others to check it out and to make a donation. I would love to see money going towards that young man's future. I mean, and young boys when man is a child. So, could you please give your website once again? What's this one?
Thank you very much. And also, if there's anyone out there who knows of someone like a Chris Cox who's done some random acts of kindness and needs to have a random act of crowdfunding, we'd reach out to those people too. But
I love it. I love that.
Yeah, we're looking for people to tell us, hey, here's a good news story, perpetuate it. Let's do a little crowdfunding raise for them. Let's do it. That's what we do at Crowd It Forward, but it's www.crowditforward. And I encourage all of your listeners, especially the conservatives out there who are always being told, hey, you don't do anything to help these inner city people. There's $2,141 in the fund right now. We'll know when we get off this program, you know, if people out there actually support it and say, hey, you know what, I'm conservative, but I want to show that I support these inner city people. You just go to Crowd It Forward, crowd like the crowd, it forward like pay it forward, Crowd It Forward, and go to the page on there that talks about the Chicago shooting.
Oh, God bless you for what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rose.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Rose, and appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. We'll be back.
Thank you more. And it's gonna be good. Anyways, this is gonna be good. Crowdedforward.com. I will find it until it does. Trust me about that.